We have some very strong opinions and ideas, and I think we'll probably state those opinions now.
So I guess with that said, just before we move into polls, I just want to check here. So what, as sort of, I guess, like, fine. Well, no, let's do polls first. Sorry, I'm flip-flopping. Polls didn't change very much. This was updated today, this morning. Liberals are down. NDP are up slightly, like tiny bit. They're projected 9 seats in 338 Canada's projections. It's the Bloc that seemed to kind of win out a tiny bit. The Conservatives haven't moved at all. They've been sitting at 126 seats for like 2 weeks now. CBC poll tracker, which, a reminder to people, the reason why we look at this one is because it's an average of all of the polls, and they weight more heavily polls that are more recent. So if we look at this was updated yesterday. Liberals are down, Conservatives are down, NDP overall are like the same. It's the Bloc that kind of won out in these debates. And I think he did a really good job of like sort of butting his head in when he did, about like, okay, but like, are you just going to ignore what Quebec wants?
Yeah,
so, like,
and I think so. And I think that's what the resounding is saying. And I think that's what we can agree to, is that the Bloc did a lot better than people probably thought. And the others, like, I think the resounding was people saying that the NDP did horrible, right? He interrupted, he was desperate.
He's desperate, yeah. But he did go up a little bit, if you, not according to like the average, but like if 338's right, he did go up a little bit. And I wonder if that's less a result though of the debate and more a result of, well, the Liberals are going to win, so I can vote the way I would normally vote.
Yeah, and I honestly, I think people, like, when people ask whether the debate really made a difference, it's I don't know. It's probably the right answer, right?
Yeah.
Right? Do I think that, you know, Mark Carney and Pierre Poilievre flop? Probably not, right? But did Jagmeet Singh more flop than them? Definitely, right? But at the same time, it looks like that the others, especially when I'm referring to Quebecois, PQ, they definitely did a lot better, and that probably was from the debate.
Yeah. Oh, I think that even that slight turn of a few seats was 100% the French and English debates. He did a very good job. Even in the English debate, he did stumble a few times over, words, but I'm sure Mark Carney was not great in French. So, okay, so who do you think kind of did the best, or like who surprised you? I know for me, it was Poilievre, and that's because I really didn't think that he would be able to control himself for 4 hours, not even 2, for 4 hours, 2 nights back to back, his attack dog, and like being able to show kind of a little bit of a more human side. Again, I'm not sure if that's going to make a difference to Canadians. I think he's fighting his 20 years of him being him. But I think for me, Poilievre was definitely a little bit of a surprise. And he did a good job in a couple spots. Like, yes, one of them was Mark Carney basically handing him a win on China security clearance. But I think overall it was like what I expected from a conservative, like a Stephen Harper era conservative.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I share that, but I also think, let me say, I think in terms of the win, I'm pretty much a toss-up between Pierre Poilievre and also Mark Carney, but for 2 different reasons. I'm surprised how great Mark Carney did in terms of holding his own, except for that one morning section. In terms of Pierre Poilievre, I'll talk about Pierre Poilievre first. Pierre Poilievre actually was trying to be statesman, I think, is the resounding situation.
I'm sure someone in his party was like be a prime minister.
which is something that we don't see very often from that guy, let alone that party right now.
Yeah.
So that really surprised me. Did he win? He definitely won on that he
Oh,
actually
I
won
don't
on
think
that.
he won. That just surprised. That was my most surprising thing.
Yeah, but I think he definitely
I don't think any of them really won. If
None of
anybody
them
won, it
won.
was the Bloc.
Nobody, like I said, nobody really won necessarily in that way, but in terms of like kind of connecting, he definitely did a good job, like in that sense, right? But in terms of actually, like who was the biggest surprise, I think they both were, to be honest with you. Like they both held their own. Surprisingly, Mark Carney survived the debates, considering he has no previous debate experience in terms of running a campaign. So he did okay, right? Was it things that he needs to work on? Of course, like all of these people have stuff to work on, but surprisingly, they both survived well, right?
I think like Mark Carney was the only one that really didn't interrupt anyone and was just
Mhm.
like, he kind of like reminds you of like the dad, right? Like, this is my policy. This is why I have it. This is my policy. This is why I have it.
Or this is my kid, and this is why I like them, or this is why I'm proud of them. Like, and that's the thing. I think people have to realize that nobody really won the debates overall, but in terms, if you want to talk about political party winning, they can say that maybe Pierre Paul won in terms of like being more statesman, being more
I
focused
think
on
it's
things.
just more of a surprise than anything. I think if anybody won, it was the Bloc.
Yeah, and like I think Brock won because the overall debate, if you put it that way.
Both
For
debates.
sure.
Like
Yeah, and I think they really stood up and they really became more relevant in the conversation, right? Which is something you don't also see all the time either. So
well, I don't know that it was more like relevant. I think it was more relevant to Quebecers.
yeah, and that's
Like,
exactly what I meant by Quebecers, right?
Yeah, like he was definitely able to be like, are you people listening to what they're saying? They're going to try to take your sovereignty. Like, I think Pierre Poilievre will ignore Quebec and do whatever he wants. I think that Carney needs to talk to Quebec, but I don't know how that will translate in actual action, right? And I think the Bloc did a good job of pushing that, particularly in when they were talking about the notwithstanding clause, and he basically completely ignored Steve's question and was like, we need to talk about Quebec and the notwithstanding clause, because Quebec out of the gate has used the notwithstanding clause more than any other province since the 80s when it was
For sure.
introduced.
For sure. And I think that's important to realize. In terms of like winning, nobody really won the debate overall, right? Like it or not. But at the same time, did anyone flop? Not really either. Except for Jagmeet Singh, of course. We know that already.
I don't know that I think the things that he was saying probably resonated with NDP voters, but I don't think it resonated enough to get them back, because I think particularly when Poilievre's talking about taking away Canadian rights, I think that would be enough for NDP voters to be like, nope, still got to vote Carney. Can't split that vote. And so I don't know that there's much he's going to be able to do. I think in the same sense, it's the same problem as the Bloc, right? People are voting for prime minister, and the prime minister is going to either be Mark Carney or Pierre Poilievre. It sucks, but like the Bloc is obviously just a Quebec party. Like they're not national, so they're never going to be prime minister. And the NDP is facing getting their political party standing taken away.
Yeah,
so
and that's
I
the big
think
problem.
we're really in a strategic situation here.
And I think we hear that resoundingly with lots of people saying that. So at the end of the day, it's whether you want a prime minister or you want an opposition or splitting the vote, right?
Yeah. And I think it's too important. Like, I think people are really worried about Trump and they want, like, that's what they're voting on. They're voting on Pierre or Carney. And I don't think that debate really swayed.
No, not at all.
Like, Mark had that stumble at the end, but like, I don't think it was big enough. Like I said, I got lambasted on Blue Sky for my article on Carney, and people were like, "Oh, you like Poilievre?" And I was like, "Okay, you clearly don't read any of my stuff." But that's important, right? But like at the end of the day, it's not important enough. And I think if this had been any other election, that story would have got a lot more traction than it did.
Definitely. And I think people have to realize that too. It's not going to kill Mark Carney's momentum right now. Not at all.
But it was terrible, and you should be worried about that. But
yeah, and it's definitely
yeah.
terrible. And I'm sure he's getting feedback from the people around him saying, you need to be better. And
don't say you'll give Canadians to China. We didn't realize we had to tell you that.
yeah, and be a bit more firm on your issues too, if you can, right?
Yeah. So.
But that's normal with any politician. So, no, like I said, it's not going to really affect too much. And I think all the pundits you talk to and listen to, just in general, will say the same thing. It really doesn't matter. The debates don't really make a big difference right now, especially when how many millions of people have voted this week already.
Right. Okay. So with that brings us to the end of the show. This is going to go up in chunks because it's really long. So what we're actually going to do is we're going to be splitting this up into the different sections, and I'll be posting it on YouTube. So if you're listening to whatever section, this will be at the end of it. So there are going to be several other sections for our listeners' purposes. There's the introduction. There is the segment on housing, public safety, tariffs, and polling, as well as the leaders talking to each other. So check out those other ones. I am going to post this as a full podcast. So if you somehow made it to the end of that 2.5 hours, thank you. You're amazing, regardless of what side you fall on. And we are going to be talking about platforms on Wednesday. That's for sure going to be Rio and I. German's unsure if he'll be able to make it, but he might. So he may join us. He may not. We also might be doing a mini episode this week on the big story that overshadowed the debate, which was the Rebel media controversy. So be sure to check that out at the end of the week when it goes up. Other than that, vote. Voting day is Monday, the 28th.
1 week from today.
No, I can't believe it. We're gonna have certainty.
And also, if you can't vote today, because this is the 21st, not sure when you'll be listening to this, right? But because by the time this goes up, you'll probably be voting. You can vote anytime up to, I think, sometime this week you can go into the elections office.
You can vote at any point in the elections office through the whole campaign.
So,
but you have to know who you're voting for, and it has to be your MP. Make sure you have their full name and the spelling correct.
Yes, and make sure you spell it correctly, because I know lots of people who've had trouble with that. So that's a problem. But anyway, make sure you go vote and get educated. That's all I ask. Don't just listen to us.
Look into the numbers. I think if anything, that's what this podcast showed. Look into what's being said, guys. Half truths. Okay.
Yes.
With that, we will talk to you on Wednesday. Bye, guys.
Bye.